Now, on to Storm v. the Dragons. Talk about some positives here. Holy, the Dragons. Amazing. Absolutely amazing. Flanigan, his ability to, like, especially against Melbourne, like, you always go back to that grand final when they beat Melbourne. He just had this perfect game plan just to ruffle feathers. Goes down to Melbourne, gets the job done. They're such a unique team, the Dragons, and I say it each week, and I'm falling more and more in love with it. I love the fact that they are building a certain DNA as a club, a DNA as a team. It's one thing to, like, whether you win or you lose, that's one thing. But another thing is that, like, the best teams, you can see there's a DNA to them. There's a style of rugby league. There's a way they kind of stand beside their mate. There's a way they kind of stick together. And what I love so much about the Dragons is, win or lose, they're playing like a Shane Flanigan's Dragons side. And they're almost like, they're the Titans, but like 10 weeks earlier. You know, they're the Titans if they didn't go 0-6 at the start of the year. They fully bought into Flanigan's systems. They're fully bought into his game plans. And they're starting to believe. We said this, about 6-7 weeks ago? We felt like they're sitting in the dressing room, and the old Dragons team used to sit in the dressing room going, probably don't have the team on paper, and, like, you know, let's just try and go out there and make as little errors as possible, and just try not to beat ourselves. Whereas this Dragon side's going out there and going, nah, fuck that. We're throwing everything on the line, and we're doing everything we can to win it. And if we go out and embarrass ourselves and lose by a lot, who gives a shit? It is so good to watch. They're fast becoming one of my, like, most enjoyable teams to watch, which is crazy for me to say this, because I'm telling you right now, the Dragons the last couple of years did not excite me at all. I think the turnaround's been absolutely incredible.
I love seeing Benny Hunt have those games when he goes up against some of the best in the competition. He just stands and reminds everyone how talented he is. Tyrell Sloan as well, like, dropped to reserve grade last week. I think he's only got back in there because of injury. Was that the best game he's played?
Mate, like, what I love about it is that it's the defence stuff that he's working on. Like, and also Sloan, it's one thing. When I used to play NRL, like, playing against, like, the bottom tier sides or even just the middle tier sides, that was one thing. But to have a big game against a Melbourne Storm was a totally different kettle of fish. It just didn't happen because they were the best of the best. And Sloan has just shown everyone, like, when everyone keeps raving about this potential, you just saw it. He just did that against the top of the table Melbourne Storm after the week. Last week he was in reserve grade. So that's where the ceiling is. It's just a matter of, can Flanigan build him up to it?
And credit to Flanigan. Like, there must have been part of him that thought, do I just play Lomax here? I've made the decision to drop this guy to reserve grade. Is the Melbourne Storm the game that I bring him back in?
I wonder whether it was like, was this pre-planned? Like, what I'll do is I'll drop Sloan before Melbourne, rev him up, get the Melbourne win.
Well, I'd love, like, if Fangai was available, I'd love to see who would have played there.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's seriously just amazing.
Yeah. Remarkable victory. Credit to them. And, like, 20 minutes to go, the Dragons are up by 2 against a side with Pappenhausen, Munster, Hughes, Harry Grant coming at you. The last 6 minutes, there was just relentless attack at the line. The Dragons obviously playing for top 8 spot, but this is the Storm who have the second best statistical attack in the competition this season. And the desperation the Dragons had, not just then, but the entire game, and their scramble defence. Anytime there was a half break made, there were just Dragons bodies everywhere. You saw the reaction from Ben Hunt at the end of the game. He exploded. He was so pumped up about it. I would love to have been in the sheds to hear what Shane Flanigan said to them before the game, because this side were going out there just saying, we're not losing this game of footy. It doesn't matter what we have to do to get there. We're going to come down here. Everyone's written us off. What a remarkable win.
And what I loved about the win as well is like, if they were $7, they were paying $7. If for them to win, I would have thought they would have gone down there and everything that could possibly stick stuck. Like, and somehow, some way, the Storm rocked up, played terribly, and the Dragons win by like 10 or 12 points. The Dragons won a gritty grind fest. Like,
that's Melbourne.
That's insane. In Melbourne. They've never won a game there pretty much. Like, what is it?
Since 99. John Howard still had one term to run as Prime Minister. People were battening down the hatches for Y2K last time they won down there. and they come out and win this weekend. And think of all the good Dragons team there's been since then. They won a comp, all sorts of stuff since then. Very impressive. And it talks to, great coaching, really. Like, think of where they were last year. They were contending for the spoon with the Tigers, last couple of years before that as well. Flanigan's done a great job. Like, they look like a team that's enjoying their footy, and that was a great win. Yeah.
When there's such a lopsided result like this, you just go, where'd it come from? As you said, Kemp, it's normally like you're making excuses for the Storm or why are they so bad. No matter what way you look at it, the Dragons just wanted more and played better footy. Like, the Storm weren't bad. The Dragons were better.
Yeah, phenomenal. And that last 5 minutes, like, I'm sitting there going, look, this is going to be one of the games where the Dragons go, we're going to get here on Monday and go, what a lot of fight. They showed so much fight. The Storm, being the best team in the comp, just pipped them, or one of the best teams. And I thought that was a guarantee. Like, I thought the Storm were absolutely going to win that last 5 to 7 minutes. The Dragons were just like, nah, not happening. Not happening.
Mate, Harry Grant scored with 20 minutes to go. I did the same. I thought, fuck,
yeah,
I hope they win this by too much now. I just thought momentum would swing, but the Dragons just bite down on the mouth guard.
And it's just a good example. And I feel like this year has been, like, the story of this year is, it doesn't matter what your team is on paper. Like, it really has been an example of, we've seen battler clubs at the start of the year, we looked at the Bulldogs roster, we looked at the Dragons roster, and we said, you know what, like, there might be some progress, but this roster isn't good enough to play finals footy. And both teams have been coached immaculately. And I tell you what, like, Serraldo will probably win Coach of the Year. Shane Flanigan is like this close to second Coach of the Year.
Imagine Flano taking the Dragons to the top 8 and doesn't get Coach of the Year.
Like, that's...
I went into this round thinking, this could be a bit of a bludger of a weekend, looking at the odds for each game. And it came out, and it was just such a shout out to the NRL salary cap in each run, because the competition is so... Seriously, like, the competition is so...
Still a bit of work to do with some teams. But
yeah, well, look, I mean, I'm not saying everyone follows it, but the concept is good. But, like, the Roosters, red-hot favourites against the Dolphins, 1 by 6, could easily have lost that game. The Eels, massive underdogs, beat the Warriors. Broncos, not as much that one, but the Dragons, huge outsiders, got the job done there.
$7 head-to-head.
$7. The Knights could have beaten Penrith at Penrith. It was a crazy weekend of footy, and you sit back and just appreciate it.
Well, the Broncos is a good example, because look at that Broncos side and the Titans.
Times for $3.
Like, so it's, mate, just an amazing season for the Dragons. And I tell you what, I was really critical of the Dragons and the way they've handled everything the last few years, the Benny Hunt, everything, all that stuff that's happened. But you've got to give credit where credit's due, to the administration, to the coaching staff, to everyone on board. This year's been amazing from the Dragons.
You mentioned that Coach of the Year competition, obviously. The Bulldogs, they've won 11 games. The Dragons have won 10. They play each other this week.
Jeez, yeah.
Like, if the Dragons managed to knock over Canterbury this week, which I imagine they'd be 250
228.
220, yeah.
Yeah, that'll be
You know what's insane? If you had said to me at the start of the year, Dragons versus Bulldogs might be game of the year,
to decide Coach of the Year.
I would have said, you are off your head. Like, what are we, like, are we 2011, 2012?
Yeah.
You're kidding me. And yet I cannot be more excited to watch the Dragons versus Bulldogs.
Yeah. The Dragons, they're sitting 8th at the moment. 5 games to go.
I cannot believe that.
Most of the games are against teams in the bottom 8 this weekend accepted, but 2 of the games are at Cogra, 2 are at Wynn Stadium. They have a very good chance to make the finals, having been, like, contending for the spoon 2 or 3 years in a row.
That game being at Cogra is perfect as well.
Yeah. What a performance. All right, in regards to actual performances on the field, and what's incredible at the Dragons is, if you had said to me that the Dragons beat the Storm, I would have said, okay, Zach Lomax scored 3 tries and set up another 6 of them. Mate, he had his quietest game all year nearly.
And they hardly kick to him either. So usually that's the whole game plan.
Like, he still played solidly, don't get me wrong, but he had a really quiet game. Obviously, Benny Hunt was out great. We'll get to Benny Hunt. But for me, it was Sua. Yeah. I've loved Sua's attitude this year. Like, he ended up getting dropped from the Queensland side, but I remember we did an interview last year, and guys, interviews are coming back. Trust me, so stay tuned for that. But Sua came on the podcast and said very confidently, I want to play Origin again. And as soon as he said it, me personally, I was like, I believe that, because I remember Sua coming through. He was the big dog coming through with the Broncos. So I was like, I can see that. But as soon as he said it, I knew what the audience would say. I knew the comments or the feeling, mate, this bloke's kidding himself. Origin. And he has backed himself all the way in, got back into Origin, and he has easily been in the top 3 players for the Dragons this year. Easily. And I just love stories like that. And it just shows you that's good coaching from Flanigan again, to get a guy that went from Origin, had a couple really quiet years all the way back into Origin contention. That's bloody good coaching.
I genuinely, at the start of the year, I was he wasn't an automatic in this starting side for me. I'd have him in the 17, but he wasn't like an automatic pick in the back row. It's been really up and down for him the last few years. He's been great. Tommy Eisenhuth, mate, played 67 minutes in this game, made 47 tackles, only 1 miss there. Got through a lot of work. I thought Harmsele was good coming off the pine as well. They're they just hang in, don't they?
Yeah. Bellin's been great at 10 all year as well.
Yes, yeah. Well, actually, sorry, I think Harmsele ended up starting in this one. Yeah, he did, and they brought Jack de Belin off the bench.
I just said 10. He's great at 10.
I said he came off the pine. I was wrong.
Oh, okay. I thought you were saying to me.
No, I
was wrong. Oh, that's hilarious.
I'll pull you up on one later, don't worry.
Okay, don't worry. Yeah, mate, it's been outstanding. The amount of players that have just lifted. Another guy I want to give a shout out, Kyle Flanigan. When he got signed there, I was just like, we spoke about it. We said this is a disaster waiting to happen. The Dragons, if they play poorly, the headline is going to be headline after headline after headline. Kyle Flanigan, Shane Flanigan, blah blah blah. We haven't. I don't even think we've seen one headline. And as I said, I thought with Kyle Flanigan, he's had so many chances at the Doggies, with the Roosters, all that. He had so many opportunities, and I just thought, you know what? He's just not an NRL half. Maybe he goes overseas, comes back, and he can be that. Mate, he's been the unsung hero in that spine this year for them.
Mate, the right edge, the attack, and the left edge of the defence, Kyle Flanigan, Moses Suli. 2 blokes who struggle to play NRL at different stages throughout their career and have spent a lot of time in New South Wales Cup. I've harped on about Suli in his defence all year, but Flanigan, terrific as well. Flano made 34 tackles against the Storm and did not miss one. Moses Suli, 13 tackles and did not miss one. That edge defensively this season has been top-notch.
Suli in attack, he is such a handful at the moment.
I love that Suli almost gets up for top-tier games. Like, often we see, let's say, Suli is not he's not a top-tier centre, even though I think that you put him up against any centre and he's going to go all right. But usually players that are in his ranking of centres, they go a bit quiet when they play Penrith and they play Melbourne. Suli's almost the opposite. He almost waits for those big games and loves it.
I don't know about you guys. I don't remember a game this year where a centre really got the better of him.
No, I think he won't probably get the credit for it because a lot of what he does is defensively and people want these highlight reel attacking moments, but he's getting so close to top-tier defensive centre in the game. We're not putting him in a class of sort of Stephen Crichton and a couple of others, but for what he does defensively, I would have him near top 3 defensive centres in the NRL. He's getting very close to that echelon.
Well, he's the kind of guy that, as I said, if you had just take out the teams outside of it and you just matched him up against any centre in the competition, I'll be confident that he won't get completely bathed by the opposition. Which is he may not dominate Stephen Crichton, but I tell you what, I would be confident that he could handle Critter. That's how good he is this year.
We'll get a good look at that this weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cannot wait. You know what? Famous last words. Sully fucking get absolutely bathed by Critter.
So they're on each other, aren't they?
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
What an awesome matchup to look forward to this weekend.
Please play well, Sully. Who else stood out for you boys?
I think for me, mate, just on that game this weekend, I want to see the Dragons back it up so much.
Yeah.
I feel like that has been a thing.
That's the only negative for them.
Yeah.
Is the inconsistency. But you know what? From where they were at to where they're at now, inconsistency every day of the week.
Yeah.
Now, they're reportedly in the market for maybe Corey Horsburgh and maybe Val Holmes. Not bad, 2 blokes to add to their roster if they do add to the roster next year.
Might be unreal.
Yeah.
Well, and then you add in one of the unsung heroes all year, and we have spoken about it a fair bit, Jacob Little.
Yeah.
He's been terrific.
And Cookie comes next year as well.
So Cookie comes in and you go, Cookie's obviously going to be starting number 9 for them, but that gives them so much strike at hooker because Little's done it. Little, the biggest thing against Little in his career has been just injuries. He keeps getting injured, but he's stringing games together this season. He's been awesome for them.
Yeah.
How about Little going toe-to-toe with Big Nasty?
Oh,
Yeah.
holy.
How's the kahunas on Little?
Oh, not Little, that's for
Big
sure.
kahuna, yeah. we got there.
Yeah, so really, really good game from the Dragons and super excited. And when you start considering, okay, maybe they'll add Holmes, maybe they'll add Cook, maybe Corey Horsburgh, I mean, it just keeps getting better and better next year. Onto the Storm. I feel like this is one of those games that complacency might be too harsh of a word, but I did get a tinge of that in this game. I did get a tinge of they probably thought it was going to be easy than it ended up being. They're still the Melbourne Storm, so they have even their lowest kind of game is still like a 7.5 out of 10. But that extra bit of energy that we've seen in recent months, especially against say the Roosters or whatever, I did think that was lacking this week against the Dragons.
It kind of felt like the 4 stars were just waiting for one of them to really grab this game, and it just never. Which I sort of just give credit to the Dragons to be completely honest. I just thought they defended incredibly well, but yeah, as I said, with 20 minutes to go, I thought they'd run away with this one.
Yeah, look, when the game finished, I was very critical of the Storm, sort of thinking on like, how can they afford to lose? Not afford to, they're top of the table by a margin, but lose a game like that to the Dragons, pushing for a top 8 spot. On reflection, mate, they have been up all season. They had a 4-point gap at the top of the table. They came up against a side who were desperate and wanted to keep their season alive and prove a point, and they did that exceptionally well. Is it a bad loss for the Storm? Yeah, it is, but I keep saying it. It is a very long season. You're going to have a down week at some point. Melbourne are no different to anyone else.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I think that, like, even watching the game, I wasn't sitting there going, that's why I say there was a tinge of complacency. I wouldn't go as far to say as they walked out there and were just like, we're going to dominate this side. Especially the further I get away from the game, I just think the Dragons were so up for the fight that I think a lot of people are going, well, Dragons, they're a bottom 8 side. We're number 1. Whereas I really do feel like the Dragons played like a top 6 side. The Dragons' performances lifted up rather than the Storm's performances dropping so far down. It was just the perfect kind of environment for an ambush. Like it really did.
And you know what, Kempy? The Storm going into this game with a 15-3 record for the season and 4 points clear at the top of the table, they could afford to be a little bit complacent. They'd earned that right. They could afford to lose that game. They're still probably short, well, not necessarily that short of favourites for the minor premiership anymore because the Storm play the Panthers. But, we talk about the Broncos being complacent or the Warriors. They had not earned the right to do that. They could not afford to lose a game. The Storm could. It happens.
I really didn't think they played that poorly, to be honest.
Yeah. And I know it's easy to say in hindsight, but you had a Shane Flanigan side who was coming off a 46-10 defeat.
As I said, it was a perfect environment for an ambush.
Yeah.
And Flano, he loves going up against a top tier side because now they've knocked off Penrith and they've knocked off the Storm.
Yep.
They've knocked off Manly. I know Manly aren't necessarily top tier side.
I think they beat Canterbury too, didn't they? Season?
So
maybe not.
He really does have a habit of almost gearing up for these top tier games. I think the Roosters are really the only top tier side they haven't beaten and been beaten handedly by.
Tigers in round 6, huh?
Big scalps. A lot of big scalps.
In regards to performance, look, some positives though. That kick, try assist for Munster. Try assist from Hughes. Line break and try assist from Hughes. He is just electric. He is electric when he gets going. And I think that heading into finals footy, we have to remember, Munster and Hughes, watching the game, I did get a feel that Grant at times was a little bit confused as to who to get the ball to. And I felt like Hughes probably didn't get the ball as much. And I'd love to see, could you, as we're talking, get up his touches compared to last week or two? Because that is one area that I think is not going to get enough credit, Storm aren't going to get enough leeway for, is the fact that Munster and Hughes actually haven't played barely any footy together this year. And that's actually it's actually going to be harder for Harry Grant to work out. Because put it this way, I feel like last year we could safely say this is Munster's team. I kind of reckon this is Jerome Hughes' team this year.
Well, I think now it is.
Yeah.
Storm have underwhelmed for a few years on the trot now, and they just started playing some of the best footy we've seen from them in years, with Jerome Hughes as a dominant number 7, with a part-time 5'8" and Tyron Wishart next to him. So I think it is Jerome Hughes' team.
And I think you could see at times like Harry Grant kind of a little bit, well, Munster's been the big dog for a long time, but Hughes is. So I think once they work out the balance there, we'll see a bit better.
42 touches of the footy for Cam Munster, 40 for Jerome Hughes.
Yeah, okay. Which is, you don't really want that in any team. Really, you want your 7 touching the ball more than your 6.
And Munster, he's good as a second fiddle. Like, doesn't mean he's the second best player in the halves, but Jerome Hughes is the 7. Let him organise the team and get around the park. Munster, you chime in, you get the ball when you want it. It's funny how the numbers back up the eye test.
Yep.
I genuinely got that feeling. What do you got there, Matty?
I've gone back. So yeah, as you said, Guru 40 for Hughes last week. The week before he had 52 touches. So
He had 12 more touches the week before.
the week before.
And you could argue with 12 more touches, is that a try?
Well, and also with him having 12 more touches, as Timmy said, Tyron Wishart playing incredible footy.
Yeah.
As the second fiddle guy.
Yeah.
Against the Roosters, he had 48, so still considerably more as well.
I wonder whether it's his lowest touches so far this year. So that'll be a balance I think they have to find, in my opinion, and obviously Bellyache will be a little bit more about footy than me. I think they should lean heavy into Hughes for the rest of the year because he's been there all year, and just say, Munster, mate, we just need you chiming in.
And Hughes is literally on track to win a Dalian medal. He's been the form player of the competition for a long period now. You have to.
Yeah. Anyone else stand out for you guys with the Storm?
Not really, mate.
I just want to give Jack Howarth a compliment, guys. We've been talking about this guy for ages. They released Remus Smith this week.
I know.
That's how far he's come. Unbelievable.
Locks him in sort of longer term, centres his spot, and if they've released Remus, it's pretty telling, isn't it?
And do you remember, I think it was 18 months, 2 years ago, Remus Smith was out for a few weeks and they just fell into a heap on one edge defensively.
Remus is gone, hey? On the plane in
He's
England.
Super League, yeah. Catalans, eh?
What a remarkable thing to do at this time of the season when you're in line to win a premiership.
Yeah, I find it I guess maybe the timing of it, maybe the contract he was getting offered needed to happen now.
Well, they just let a couple of players go, didn't they, Catalans?
Yes, true.
Season, so they probably needed some backup.
But Howarth, isn't his journey interesting? Because he came into the squad as a centre, out-and-out centre. Then they go, okay, he's probably not a centre, he's probably a back rower. And even this year, he was a back rower. Gets an opportunity in the NRL as a centre, and they go, oh, hang on a sec, we might have our centre here. I still think long-term he's probably a back rower, but, geez, the versatility to have a guy that can play both, that has an origin and kind of proven that point. His value now is through the roof.
By the way, it was Hughes' 4th lowest of the year.
4th lowest of the year.
Yeah.
And I'd love to know in those other games, did they win or lose and all that kind of stuff. That'd be interesting to see. Howarth's been outstanding. Pappy, a little bit quiet this game.
He's getting injections in his foot.
Yeah, okay.
And, mate, he had he ran for 69 metres from 10 runs. So, yeah.
How longer might come in, you reckon?
Well, you do wonder, I don't know whether it's an injury where, if they give him a month off, they can get it right and get back to where he needs to be. But you can tell he's looked okay, but Ryan Papenhuyzen, 10 runs, 69 metres, is remarkably low for him. Is it something they can give him a month off, play for a long go, get him right and fully fit for finals? Because they need him exploding if they're going to beat a Penrith Panthers team come finals.
I went to have a quick look, but that was actually only Hughes' 2nd loss of the whole year.
Yeah, wow.
So
far out.
it's hard to say.
Second loss this year.
Yeah, the only other loss was the Manly game.
Yeah, wow.